Across the Pod NFL podcast. It's time for our week 4 review. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davies, and with me, I've got a returning guest and a new guest to the podcast, both from the same podcast, both of them from the Third and Long podcast. So, first of all, with me today is Ravens fan Shane. How are you, mate? How are things?
Andy, a pleasure as always. Thanks for having me. How's things? You all right?
Yeah, all good. Those who saw on our Twitter page, I was busy last on Sunday. The London game between the Jaguars and the Falcons, that was an amazing experience. There will be a vlog about it coming up in the future, but yeah, amazing experience. The best thing is I got 2 more of these, so yeah, looking forward to the 2 Tottenham games as well. And yeah, that was an amazing experience. Got to speak to Neil Reynolds, Michael from Pro Football Ireland. Tony Baselli walked past me whilst I was making a cup of tea for myself. Met so many people and so many guests of the podcast that have been on this podcast. I met both for the first time and also before. So I met, I bumped into Freddie again from Franchise Tag, Dan Falui from across the pond. Met Dre, met Ash, met Sam and George from the Turn to Sports team, and Chris Milner. I met so many guests for this podcast that have been on this year and last year were there. So yeah, it was all around a great time. But as well as Shane, we've got one of his fellow members of the Third and Long podcast, a first timer to this podcast. With me today is Oli Hope. How are you, mate? How are things?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me, Andy. I'm very excited. I know you've come on our podcast before, so it's nice to make an appearance on yours.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I was also at the Wembley game. The atmosphere was incredible, and I'm also lucky enough to go to the other 2 London games too. Not quite in the press box, but I'm looking forward to them also.
Yeah, I thought actually, I don't know whether you thought the same thing. I thought that it was one of the best atmospheres I've had at a London game. I think it was the first time I felt ever. I think maybe my 8th or 9th game I've been to in my lifetime now in London, and that felt to me like the best home crowd in terms of it felt like all Jags fans was a lot. I don't know what you felt, Ollie. It felt like a very loud Jags contingent at this game.
Yeah, I think it was mainly Jags fans. I was sat next to, well, near 2 fans that were, Atlanta through and through, getting excited every time they got more than 2 yards on a play and standing up. But mainly it did seem to be Jags fans, and I was there shouting Duval with the rest of them.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant atmosphere. And actually, we may as well talk about it now. That was the first game on Sunday. Falcons took on the Jags. The Jags won convincingly by 23 points to 7. Ollie, your thoughts first, as you were there as well as myself. What were your thoughts on the overall performance of both teams?
So the Falcons' offense was poor. It was Bijan Robinson and nothing else. Something I did notice a lot of, though, was Desmond Ridder was playing a lot of dink and dunk. I'm not sure if it's whether Arthur Smith doesn't trust him to throw the ball long, because both times he threw it long in the game, it probably should have been picked. But he was playing a lot of short offense, and the defense was able to adjust quickly to that with the 2 picks and the pick 6. And although I don't think the Jags offense was firing on all cylinders, it didn't really need to be. Obviously, they scored a couple of touchdowns, the Calvin Ridley one, and I think they scored one other, and then the pick 6. So it wasn't a great game in quality wise, but it was still a great atmosphere, and hopefully the other 2 will be a bit closer with 2 good teams.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that Bills Jazz game. I mean, that's just a really exciting matchup, and just Josh Allen. I mean, we'll talk about the Bills in a bit, but they're one of the best teams in recent weeks in the league, and the Jags, have the home advantage, which gives them a little bit of a stranglehold over the Bills in that sense. That should be an amazing game, and I think if they can win that Jags, I think that's a good sign. But at the same time, it's such a poor division. They could easily lose this game and still win a division with ease. I mean, they're 2-2 right now, and I think whilst it wasn't convincing, I think at this stage of the season, you've got to get the wins in. You've got to it's not about how you start. I think I was saying this last week when you beat the Broncos. It's all good winning in week 3, but that's not going to win you Super Bowls. And I think that as long as the Jags can get form at the right time down the stretch from week 14 onwards, I think that's more important. I think the fact they're in a worse division, I think, helps that because they can afford to go 9-8 maybe 8 and 9 or something, and still win the division. So, I think the Jags. I thought the Trevor Lawrence touchdown to Calvin Ridley, the first one, was really impressive because the way he evaded that pressure and avoided the sack and got the touchdown to Calvin Ridley, I thought was fantastic. And I thought that, I think everything you were saying is right. I think the Falcons were terrible. I mean, there was only really in the first half a couple of plays to write home about. There was one catch from Johnny Smith, and then there was another one maybe to, was it Cadell Hodge? But it wasn't really much. I think second half they started off well. You had the touchdown on the first drive, and and ultimately I don't think it was enough. But I think Ridder has to be careful now because I think he's got Taylor Heineke behind him, and Taylor Heineke is an experienced backup. He's had plenty of experience as a starter, and he's done, I think, at times okay and fairly all right. And he's had these moments. So I think he's got to be careful because whilst it's only his first year as a starter, Arsenal's methods are going to care about that. And when you got a good running back room in Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and I think a defense that has signs and has good moments, has good players in it, I think he can't really afford to be held back by a bad quarterback. So I think if he does struggle again next week against the Texans, I think we could then see potentially a change. But interesting times at the Falcons. But for you, Shane, you obviously would have watched it at home, I'm guessing. What was your take on the game?
I was actually in work when this game was on, so I didn't manage to catch it, but I did catch the highlights when I came home. I think everything has already been covered by yourself and Oli regarding how the game went. I did see Trevor Lawrence throw a gorgeous 30-yard strike to Calvin Ridley, which popped the crowd, to use a wrestling terminology. But yeah, I thought the Jags are a really good team. I think they're firing, or at least starting to fire now. Regarding these London games as well, I've been a Ravens fan, an NFL fan since about 2001, and I never ever thought I'd get to see my team play ever, But today I'm in possession of my tickets today, so this will probably be one of the best days of my life, and I apologize in advance if I do manage to bump into you and I'm a blubbering mess, shall we say, because I probably will be.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. I remember you came on the podcast for the Ravens season preview. You talked about how it's going to be your first time seeing the Ravens play, and I'm just so happy for you because that's something that I felt as well. I know my first game Dolphins was 2021. It was that Jags game. It was only my fourth or fifth game at London. I thought it was just amazing. And when I had more emotion there, I think, than when I went watching in Miami. I think it was just because my first time ever watching a team play. It was just fantastic. And I know we didn't win the game, but I think I'll always remember that day. Always, because I remember everything about it from start to finish. Because I think you're right, it's special. And I don't know whether you had the same thing with the 49ers, Oli, but I think it's just that first time seeing your team play, especially if you watch the league for a few years and you haven't yet watched them live. After years of watching them, following them, staying up late to watch them, to then watch them just for some people in a backyard or within a 2-3 hour journey, it's an amazing experience, and I'm really happy for you, Shane. And I hope I get to see you, and I hope I'll have to get some Kleenex ready for the day.
Yes, please. I advise that.
So it's funny you say that, because the reason I became a 49ers fan was because the first game I ever went to go watch was, I think, in 2009, and it was the 49ers versus the Broncos at Wembley Stadium. And at that point, I'd already been to San Francisco, and despite the third string quarterback playing, San Francisco won, and that's why I became a 49ers fan.
I mean, I apologize, I actually forgot to ask that question, but that was one of our planned questions, was how you became a fan.
It was.
It's that's. I mean, I've actually recently been to San Francisco, and I thought that, I don't know whether you agree, but I thought Pier 39 was just unbelievable. And we did Alcatraz as well. That was really cool. I'm intrigued actually to ask you, where did you stay hotel wise, out of curiosity? Do you remember the name of it?
I've actually been to San Francisco 3 times.
Oh wow, okay.
The last time I went, the first 2 was with my family, so I didn't plan it. But the last time I went was with my friend who was a Vikings fan a couple of seasons ago, where we went to the 49ers versus Vikings. And we stayed at the Hyatt Regency at Fisherman's Wharf.
Oh wow! That's an amazing.
It was about 2-minute. Yeah, it was a 2-minute walk from an IHOP, which was important because we went there every day for breakfast. And it was about 5 minutes walk from Pier 39, so it was a very good location.
Well, you actually went there every day. I hated IHOP when I went there. I didn't think it was nice at all.
Oh, we definitely like IHOP.
I thought it was the pancakes. It was just I thought it was just I don't know. I didn't like the was it buttercream on top of the pancakes. I didn't think they were that nice. And then the breakfast was not breakfast. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't a classic English fry up anyway.
Yeah, I'll admit the fry up is different, but I, having been to America before, knew to ask for the pancakes without the buttercream on.
Oh, okay, that's a game changer because that makes a difference.
Yeah, I've been lucky to go to America. I've been to America a lot in my lifetime, which I'm very lucky. So I feel like I know certain things of what to ask for and what not to ask for when at restaurants. I've made the mistake before of asking for something with chips and it coming with crisps.
Oh God, that can't have been a nice surprise.
No, getting a sandwich and crisps was interesting when I was
Hmm.
expecting it to come with chips or fries.
Yeah, that's a life lesson that I think probably a good one to have. Yeah, I mean, I only asked about your hotel because we actually got almost got scammed by a hotel in San Francisco. So we got there, and then they wouldn't take or my phone told me I had paid it. They was telling me that we hadn't paid it. There was a constant back and forth between ourselves and them, and in the end, the guy just literally rips up our um our room for like reservation paper, rips it up in front of us, and tells us to leave. And then
Wow, wow.
we were stuck what to do, and then we had to go to another one. But it was literally this is why I asked because it was literally in amongst some sort of crackdown. I swear because there was homeless people everywhere in the bathroom of this place. My friend saw a heroin needle.
Wow.
There was let's say not the human excrement on the walls as well. It was a horrible experience. I was intrigued because there was definitely a homelessness problem in there, but I felt like it was only really in one area, which is where the hotel was we went to last minute.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
Unfortunately.
yeah. I
My
mean,
my my friend my friend went San my friend went to San Francisco, and I always say it's my favorite city in the world. And he was like, "There was just homeless people everywhere," and I was like, "Well, then you didn't go to the right areas
yeah. That was my
because there
thing.
is a homeless problem, but it is only in one area." And it's funny you say that because the first time I went to San Francisco, I stayed in that area, so I made sure to not stay there again.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's something I know I'm going back actually for a day because I'm basically I've been obsessed for like 5 years now with Steph Curry. So basically, I've managed to buy a ticket and a flight to San Fran for just from Vegas to San Fran in November. And I'm going to basically I've got tickets already. So basically in 2 days I'm going to be watching Steph Curry and LeBron James, which would be like an amazing going to LA as well to watch that. So yeah,
That's
I'm looking forward
incredible.
to going back.
That's incredible.
And I'm definitely going to go back to that lid store. I don't know whether you went to the one on Pier 30, whether you'd even open when you last went, but I went to one in Vegas where it was amazing. And then I go to this one in San Fran. It was literally like so incredible. There was so many things there. There was the Florida Gators hats, there was college gear, there was loads of NFL jerseys, and loads of like cool Golden State Warriors jumpers and all that. So I thought that was the most amazing sports shop I've ever been to in my life. That was just an incredible store.
There's a possibility I bought 3 hats in that shop.
Oh wow.
And
There's a possibility.
actually last time I was in San Francisco, I was also lucky enough to see Steph Curry.
Oh, how was that? How did he play that day?
He dropped 35 points and the Warriors beat the Trailblazers. It was incredible. I was in San Francisco for 6 days, and in that time I managed to go and watch Stanford versus Notre Dame,
Wow,
this Golden State Warriors versus the Portland Trailblazers, and the Niners at the Vikings. Sorry, Vikings at Niners.
that is that's some trip. That's
Yeah.
days. Oh,
So, boys, if it's don't work out for you, you can always be travel agents.
well, you never know if the podcasting fails. I always got a backup career in mind.
But there's some things I know I'll never forget, and that experience at Levi Stadium,
Oh,
the noise there is on third down is something I will never forget.
I know exactly how you feel because I went to the game in week two. The Giant, no, sorry, it was week three, the Thursday night game in San Fran against the Giants. Albeit I had to leave after an hour because that's what you get when you got a friend booking a flight who's not an NFL fan. So only caught about an hour of the game, but we went there, for the whole 2 hours it was open for before the game, and I thought it was incredible. My mate, who's a Colts fan, he also was amazed by it. It was only his second ever game in America, and I just couldn't believe how loud it was because I wasn't sure what to expect. Because sometimes, I've been to the Falcon Stadium, which is an amazing stadium. I've been to ones like where it's not the best atmosphere. I'll put SoFi in that as well, controversially, but San Fran was nice stadium and also loud, which you don't always get with stadiums. It's normally one or the other. So I thought that was incredible, and I think obviously helped by those Giants fans there. And they travel well, and they're a good fan base. So have both of them there with us, and it was like 24 degrees that day. It was so warm. That was just incredible, and I wish I stayed there for the entire game, but I've still got to say I've been there, and I can still say I've been to a game there. But yeah, that's an amazing stadium, and I definitely would go back if I had the chance again.
Yeah, I'm hoping to go back soon, but I'm not sure how that's going to go.
Well, of course, Super Bowl is going to be there. I believe it's Super Bowl 60. I want to say maybe 60.
Yes, it is Super Bowl 60, I believe, in 2026.
Yeah, that's like I remember the Super Bowl 50 was 2016, wasn't it? So that makes perfect sense.
It's funny because Super Bowl 50 was also at Levi Stadium.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Peyton Manning's last game and all. I remember there was stuff about it.
Hopefully, we'll finally get Metallica to do the halftime show in Levi Stadium because they are Bay Area boys.
I keep telling you, Metallica are not going to do the halftime show. They're not mainstream enough.
Don't be daft. We have this argument every week, Andy.
I mean that'll be. I mean, I would always say I love the Arctic Monkeys or Kasabian, but I know they're never going to get the halftime show unless it's in the UK, and even then it won't probably be Ed Sheeran, wouldn't it? But yeah, no, that.
I digress.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go back to the football and week 4. So before the Sunday games, there was a Thursday night game where the Lions beat the Packers by 34 points to 20. And then moving on to the Sunday slate, there were a few games of 6 o'clock UK time. So there was I thought would be the worst game of the week, but it was actually one of the best in the Broncos. Bears, which friend of the show Luke Campbell went to Soldier Field, 31-28 win for the Broncos. A win for Tennessee, surprising over the Bengals by 27 points to 3.
I like that result.
Oh, I mean, I loved it. I loved seeing Derrick Henry do his thing. Rams and Colts was an overtime thriller as the Rams won 29-3. Buccaneers beat the Saints in Jameis Winston Bowl 26-9. And the Eagles beat the Commanders 34-31 in overtime. But 2 games of 6 I want to focus on. One involving my team, as the Buffalo Bills beat the Dolphins 48-20. Now, I will get into more in depth about the Dolphins' performance in our other podcast, the Fins Nation UK podcast, which will be out, I believe, Thursday or Friday this week. So keep an eye out for that one if you want to listen to that one. But I want to talk about mainly the Bills side of things. Now, pre-season, everyone was talking about the Chiefs, the Bengals, and those are the main 2. And some people were putting the Dolphins in that chat, but not really, even after 2 weeks. No one was mentioning Buffalo. But the last 3 weeks, after their week 1 loss to the Jets, which albeit was a bad performance, they've won 3 games in a row, and they've all been by 28 points or more. Now, for me, their defense has improved massively. I think that was the key in this game. I think we were just outplayed by their team. I think the defense were just amazing. And I think that defense gave us so many problems, and Tua so many problems. And, he got sacked, I think, only for the second time or third time this year, in this game. But I thought the offense looked really, generally think this offense is probably the best it's looked in terms of the most balanced. In years gone by, it's been Josh Allen, but now you're seeing the Latavius Murray get a few reps. James Cook is getting involved, and they're using the run game a lot more. And Josh Allen is you aren't seeing his legs as much, and I think you're seeing a lot more just his arm, and I think they're saving his legs. I think they're saving his health in a way. And we're seeing Stephon Diggs obviously got 3 on Sunday. Gabe Davis got involved, which Tony Romo loved, which I hated the fact he was on this game. Because he seemed to just be really hating whenever Dolphins did anything good. But I thought the Bills, for me, looked amazing. I think that they're looking really good right now, and I know it's only 4 weeks in, but do you think, after seeing the last 3 weeks, and especially seeing how they beat us, a team that scored 70 points the week before, do you think that the Bills could actually be the year, which no one expected to be, the year where they actually do win the AFC Championship game?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So the listeners of our podcast will know how high I am on Tua, because this argument comes up every week with another host who is very low on Tua.
However, we don't like him at all. You don't like him at all.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to accept that Tua can play well. However, Tua did not have a great game, and I do think the defense, that's to the defense's credit. Keeping Tyreek under 60 yards, Waddle under 50, keeping Mostert quiet. However, I am worried for the defense because Tre'Davious White has obviously torn his Achilles, and that is a massive loss. He is sort of the lifeblood and the heartbeat of that Bills defense. So I'm not sure how well they will do without him. And to flip around onto the offensive side, at the moment they look imperious, but I'm not sure. And if they can keep that up, then yes, they have a great chance. But I'm not sure they will be able to keep it up for the entire season. So on the current form, yes, but I'm a bit dubious due to the loss of key piece on defense, and if they can keep the form up at the moment.
What's your take on that, Jane?
I think the first week of the season was a blip for the Bills. I think obviously they've got all this offensive talent on on that side of the ball, and I'm a big fan of Stephon Diggs, and the fact that he got a hat trick on Sunday shows the quality that we all know is there anyway. One of the touchdowns where he basically shook off two defenders that were in the middle of tackling him and was like, "Nah, I'm going." And then he went, and I was like, he's just unbelievable. And like you said, Andy, about the fact that Josh Allen isn't using his legs as much anymore, so he's becoming more of a pocket passer. You know, he's using his legs less. If we look at the rest of the Bills games coming up now, or at least a couple of them, they've got the Jags on Sunday, which we've covered. They've got the Giants, the Pats, the Bucks, and the Bengals. The next 4 games after that. I can't see him dropping a game until they play the Eagles, at least on the 26th of November. And that'll be a shootout in itself. So I think the Bills are going to go far. I really do.
Yeah, I sadly agree. I mean, I think, as you say, Oli, that I actually forgot about the Tre'Davious White injury, and that's big. And I think that, I think it will be a big miss in that sense. But I do still think at the same time they got other players in that team. I think they got Von Miller coming back in recent. Whether he'll be the same player, we don't know. But I still think there's plenty of players. I think people like AJ Epinesa on his day is a great player, and he has shown it in spurts. He can be a player for the future for them. And they brought in Kaya Elam last year, I believe it was in the draft, and they got players there. But I think even if their defense does struggle, I think the offense they've got and the way it's performing right now, I think even if they, concede 25, 30 points in a game, their offense is that good, a bit like ours really on our day, then they could score 35, 40 points. And I think that could be how they do it whilst he's out. And I think that's a big thing. And also, I want to touch a little bit, I know I'll talk about more on Fins Nation, but the Dolphins' performance, I have no idea why they put a young player like Kade Kohu on Stephon Diggs. I have absolutely no idea because the guy struggled, and I get it after the first time you think, okay, now we've changed up, but they kept at it the whole game. The whole game, Kade Kohu was on Stephon Diggs, and I think at some point you've got to just change it around. And and I know Xavier Howard's not been at his best, but put at least an experienced cornerback on him, and I think that's one thing that Daniel will learn from. I think he's learned a lot in his first year and a half, and he learned a lot about using the run game more, and that's what he's starting to do now. So I think he's got the ability to adapt and change. But I think the play calling was a bit questionable in this game, and I think the decision to go for 2 points when really he should have taken a point and just made it a 14-point game, I believe it was. It definitely was. It would have been back to being a 7 or basically a touchdown sort of difference, or 2 touchdown difference. So I think, yeah, definitely some lessons for us. But at the same time, I'm glad it's happened now rather than later on, because now we can learn from this. We're still 3-1, still level with the Bills on top. We've got the Giants next, which is at the moment probably a guaranteed win. And it's going to be, I think, especially with the AFC East, losing Rodgers to the Jets and the Patriots looking pretty bad. I think I've still got confidence we can at least challenge for the AFC, if not win it, and I think we'll definitely make the playoffs unless something horrendous goes wrong. Speaking of the Patriots, we were meant to have other member of the Third and Long podcast, Oli, on, but he is out with sickness, so he'll be on in the future, I'm sure. So we were.
He's lost his voice after cheering so much at Wembley.
Yeah.
And then got humbled completely by the Cowboys game later on, which did finish with 38-3, which was in fact Bill Belichick's largest loss in his time as a head coach in the NFL. Other results going on. So actually before we do that, your team, Shane, the Ravens put out a convincing 28-3 win against a Deshaun Watson less Cleveland Browns. Your take on your guys winning what is now a 3-1 start?
Well, as I mentioned on our show last night, I saw something on Twitter yesterday that said the AFC North is basically the Ravens and three dumpster fires. And I genuinely think it is. With the fact that, as you mentioned, the Browns didn't have Deshaun Watson, and we capitalized on that. Lamar Jackson ran in for two. He passed to his favorite target, Mark Andrews, for another 2 touchdowns as well. And I think we look really good. We also had 3 interceptions. Brandon Stevens, Kyle Hamilton getting his first interception. And it was also, name escapes me, it has been 2 days. But yeah, as I said, we look really, really convincing against the Browns. And the fact that we are 3-1 now, we sit alone atop of the AFC North. And we also have probably the biggest rivalry in the AFC to come this Sunday with those terrible towel twirling people, as I say. And I think we'll win that one as well. So we are rolling into London against the Titans. I think we're rolling into London 4-1 and looking like we should take the Titans as well.
Big weekend of rivalries this weekend.
Was that?
Big weekend of rivalries in the NFL.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I think what you've got Ravens Steelers. What else have we got here? We got Dallas
Boys Niners.
49ers Dallas. Wow,
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I'm talking about. That's the rivalry.
That is big. Now I don't know how you're going to take this, Shane. I know you're 3-1. I know but I find you guys incredibly boring to watch. I don't know what it is.
Okay, right. There's a hot take. Go on then.
I don't ever sit down and go, I can't wait to watch the Ravens. Maybe in Lamar Jackson's MVP year, maybe back there. I don't know. The last few years, I've been thinking, I've never got excited watching the Ravens. Obviously, your thing definitely. You're obviously been a fan for years, but I just never. I find even though you're winning good, I think the main thing is you're winning games. I think that's kind of a good team, but I just never get hyped up watching you guys play. I don't think I ever have really.
It's mad to say that now. We got new offensive coach on board, Todd Monken, so we've had to learn his style of offense. And we've always traditionally been a run heavy offense. But now the fact that he's more of a passing coach, and the fact that we've brought in the likes of OBJ and Nelson Aguilar, who I didn't have high hopes for, but fair play, he's pulling his share, you know. And we've also got Zay Flowers. Come on, you can't say, are you not entertained by Zay Flowers? He's incredible.
No.
I do love Zay Flowers, but the amount Oli goes on about him, I do find myself sometimes being like, can he just have a bad game, just so Oli doesn't bring it up?
He wanted him in New England. See, he wanted him, but we beat him for that one.
I was fully aware that he wanted him. He's been harking on about him for about 4 years, because obviously being a Patriots fan, he's also a Boston College fan. So
of course, yeah, it makes sense. I think in the day, I think just results matter more than performance, and I think that you'd rather be winning games, not playing well, especially this time of year. And I think that as long as you're winning games, that's the most important thing. But I can't say I get too upset about the Ravens. We're moving on to the other games, a 9 o'clock slate, as the Panthers lost again, went 0-4, as the Vikings got their first win of the year, a 21-13 win. The Texans looked very impressive as they beat the Steelers by 30 points to 16, and the Chargers beat the Raiders by 24 points to 17. And I mentioned before, Dallas Cowboys beat the New England Patriots by 38 points to 3. And before we go on to the very last game, the Chiefs beat the Jets, but not as close, not as big, not as overwhelming.
Convincingly,
only 3.
Yeah, at 17 and 0 to the Chiefs, I was thinking this was going to go a very different way than it did.
Yeah, I agree. I thought even with the defense, how good it is, I just thought Zach Wilson's there. The running back room hasn't been great until now. I was convinced they were going to get the win, but fair play to the Jets. Zach Wilson actually was the passing leader in this game, threw for more yards than Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, I think that it's a shame for the fans because their season's been robbed. But I think with this kind of performance, I think it's definitely encouraging, even just for next season. If they get Rodgers back and he's back to health, the team they've got around him. This is why I had him win the Super Bowl in our predictions episode, because I think that team is so good around them. The defense is incredible. Garrett Wilson is an absolute stud. And CJ Uzomah, I think, is a good player, but he never gets the sort of the targets he deserves. And the running back room, Breece Hall, I think, is a great young player, and Dalvin Cook, I think, is showing signs of being washed. But I think as a backup, it's not the worst thing in the world. And that defense is just absolutely sensational. So yeah, I think the Jets have got positive despite losing that game. But I've got to say, if I see Taylor Swift one more time on my TV, I'm gonna chuck my remote to the TV. It's just too much. It really is just it's very exhausting now. I think it needs to just be rein down a little bit. I think we get their touchy dating, we get all this. She's at the games, yes, great, but give it a rest. Come on, guys, this is ridiculous now.
I do think Aaron Rodgers being back with the team will be a massive help for Zach Wilson, even though Rodgers isn't on the field. I feel like as a mentor in the background, that will help.
And then before we go on to the final game of discussion, there was a game on last night as the Seahawks destroyed the Giants by 24 points to 3 in a really embarrassing performance from the Giants. Daniel Jones actually led the game with 203 passing yards, but he was pretty bad, really bad. And the Seahawks defense was just, I thought, sensational. So fair play to them. And the Giants have the Bills and Dolphins in the next 2 games. That could be a 1-6 start for the Giants, but
good luck.
It's funny because in our podcast league, this week I actually was playing Shane in fantasy football, and despite Shane having the Seahawks defense and them getting 30 points, I managed to just come out with the win.
Decent. And who was in your team?
I have McCaffrey and Ayuk, who got me a lot.
Oh yeah, I had McCaffrey. Yeah.
But then some people take fantasy football more serious than others,
Yes. I also managed to see a tweet from Eric Armstead, the Niners D lineman, which said, Daniel Jones, I'm so disappointed in you. You threw the ball so quickly against us, but then this week you hold on to it for so long and let the Seahawks defense have career games.
Oh yeah,
against us, he was throwing it so quickly.
Yeah, it was just. I think at that point as well. Yesterday I felt like, or this morning, you should say, for us UK listeners, and I feel like after a certain point, Daboll should let them go and just. Cause there was a point where, especially in the fourth quarter, you knew they weren't going to win that game. There was no chance of them winning that game. Just take him out and just accept the loss. And yeah, I didn't only help him, but I thought, particularly Devin Witherspoon, I thought looked really, really good. I mean, it was coming off the nickel, he just was everywhere, and then that interception as well. I believe was it a pick as well?
97-yard pick six.
Yeah, it was just absolutely incredible. And
I decided to stay up to watch it. I don't know why, but I did.
Wow, you saw a lot of rubbish football. So
yes,
I don't know who win really. Going back to fantasy football, at least Shane actually took part in the draft, and in our one, he wasn't even there. You were on auto pick the entire time.
Shane was.
I know. I didn't even know what was going on with
Shane was
Shane
was kind of involved in our draft. He was on auto pick at the start.
Because I do everything off my phone, do my podcasts off my phone. I couldn't draft and be on the podcast at the same time.
Yes, we did. We did a live podcast during our draft.
Oh wow, that sounds like a crazy combination.
Oh.
It's the second year we've done that. It's always an interesting episode.
I bet. Yeah, I bet. It's how long was your pick? How long was it per pick time wise?
So I was the commissioner, and I cut it from 90 seconds down to 60.
Oh my god, that sounds like absolute chaos.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also cut it down from 16 teams to 12 teams.
Okay, that's a bit quicker then.
Last year was long because it was 90 seconds per pick, 16 teams per round. It was long.
The math on that one, like.
So, cut down the teams, cut down the time per pick, and it ran a lot more smoothly this year.
Sounds good. Speaking of sounding good, the Niners look really good right now as they had another win to go 4-0 as they beat the Cardinals 35-16. Now there are a couple of records. McCaffrey, I believe he's got the most consecutive games now with a touchdown, and for the first time ever, you scored 30 points or more in your first 4 games. I mean, just how good was that performance, but also just how good has your team been this year? How good have you looked
I
so
was going to
far?
say, before we do, this is what's known on our podcast as the pee break part of the show. So if you want to go now, you're more than welcome to stick the kettle on. Go for it, Ollie.
So, as you said, McCaffrey has broken the record. He has scored a touchdown in 13 consecutive games. I mean, he then added it by scoring 3 more this game and getting 4 touchdowns. And when talking to people, I have called McCaffrey a real-life cheat code.
Mm.
And I think that's probably the best way to describe him. Ayuk had a game without actually scoring a touchdown. I think he had 146 yards. But the thing that's a bit weird about this is, although we've beaten every team convincingly, in the third quarter or at halftime, it's usually been a one-score game. So it seems like we almost wear teams down and then in the second half extend our lead. So I'm not sure if it's just very good adaptations at halftime or whether it's wearing down the other team or whether it's just sheer coincidence because it is only 4 games. But we do seem to be playing a lot better in the second half. However, this is our first real test, I think, against Dallas. And I am a bit worried about our secondary because Ambry Thomas does not look like he's at the correct level, and also the right side of our offensive line with Spencer Barefoot and Colton McViss trying to contain the very good pass rush from the Cowboys for next week. But all in all, I'm very happy with the 4-0. We're playing well. We've got all our pieces on offense are clicking, which is good. Should have Debo back to healthy next week. So it's looking good, and hopefully if we beat Dallas, we should be able to extend that because we've got a fairly easy set run of fixtures after that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your schedule now, so you've played some fairly favourable teams, the Cardinals, the Giants, the Steelers and all that. And then, I think, I don't know what Sean Watson's injury is like, but you're playing him and you may be playing Thomas Johnson or Robinson or whatever he's called. You've got the Vikings who haven't been great so far. You've got the Bengals, and I think they're a real anomaly. They're a real interesting one because I think I even though they're 1-3, I still if Burrow does get back to health, as long as they make the playoffs and edge in, I can still see him being a problem. But then you've got the Jags, the Bucks, the Seahawks twice, the Cardinals again. You've got the Ravens, which is a third and long derby there in week 16.
Yes, on Christmas Day.
Christmas night.
Christmas
That
night.
is quite the matchup there in stake. But I think you've got a fairly good schedule, and I think that for me personally, from an outsider looking in, I think right now you've been the best team in the league by some way because the Cowboys look good in the first 2 weeks, but they look bad in week 3 against Cardinals. We looked amazing in the first 2 weeks. We looked times I think we were definitely outplayed by the Bills in week 4. So I think you guys have been good every single week. I mean, Brock Purdy has looked back. He's not. I don't think he's yet lost a regular season game as a starter.
He's not.
And he's looking every bit as good as he was before the injury. So those doubts are out the way. I genuinely think McCaffrey is. I genuinely think the best mid-season trade anyone's made in the last 5-10 years. I really do think that his addition. I bet Garoppolo wishes he had him when he was at 49ers, but I think that I can't think of a more, in terms of mid-season acquisitions, a trade with that much more of an impact. I think even if you look at off-season trades, that's probably sort of still up there anyway. It's one of the best. I don't think anyone in the last few years has made that much of an impact from a trade as him. I think he's been sensational. I really like Ayuk. I like Debo, but I'm not as high maybe as others. I think he needs to work on his consistency. But George Kittle's an amazing tight end. The defense you've got there, Fred Warner, arguably the best linebacker in the game, if not one of the best. You've got Eric Armstead. You've got Javon Hargrave came in from the Eagles. You've got such a good team. And it's so well coached as well. I think you guys right now, personally, I think I can see it being a Chiefs Niners Super Bowl. I still think the Chiefs will get there. And I think you guys, for me, right now, if I had to put me on any team winning it, it'd be you guys. I bet on you guys more than anyone else in the league. I think you're that good. Shane, do you share that sentiment, or how are you feeling on the Niners? Do you agree they're also the best team?
It's not, yeah. In all honesty, yeah, we've said it on our podcast multiple times. The Niners are probably the best team in football right now. There's with every team there's a weakness. With every team there's a weak link. They don't seem to have one. I mean, Brock Purdy, fair play to him, Mr. Irrelevant, hasn't lost any game that he started, which is an incredible statistic for anyone, to be fair. And when you've got a security blanket like McCaffrey, who is 18-1 on Sky Bet for season MVP, that's not a bad shout.
I'm getting in on that. I'm after
I know.
podcast, putting a tenner on that.
Oh, yes. And you've got the likes of, as you said, Brandon Ayuk and Debo. And and George Kittle, who was at, exactly George Kittle, who was at Monday Night Raw last night. I put a video in our group chat about that. But yeah, they got him as well, and that's without even mentioning the defensive side of the ball. As I said, they'll probably win it all. But I just can't stand the fans, Andy.
Two Niners fans all over the group chat whenever we're winning. I don't think they can handle it. But it's funny. It's funny you brought up the McCaffrey trade because it's coming up to a year since that trade happened, and I always think back to the analysis from ESPN when that trade happened. So they gave the Niners a grade of C- for the trade, and their quote was, "The Niners will live to regret this trade."
Wow, they certainly aren't.
I'm still waiting to start for the regret to start.
I'm going to say, I think there's one weakness in this team. It's the Kyle Shanahan choke. Now, we've seen it with the Falcons as coordinator. We saw it in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs in Miami. And, I think the last two losses in the championship, you can't really blame on him because I think, I think that's probably down to the quarterback being Garoppolo at the time. But that's my only worry for you guys is when it's come to a big game, you've often lost it, and that's my only worry about you guys now. Friend of the show, Paul Hope, is someone that I'm sure shares the same sentiment, but as well. But yeah, I think that's got to be the only concern going in. And also injuries. The last few years for you guys, injuries. I mean, that's been a big problem ever since you beat the Super Bowl. Year after was a really injury hit year, and you had a lot of injuries last year as well. And obviously, we all know what happened in that NFC Championship game when you were at one point having McCaffrey as the quarterback. So that's got to be some concern for you, isn't it, Oli?
I mean, there is a Kyle Shanahan choke, but my biggest concern is actually the secondary. I really don't think Ambry Thomas is at the level. There's a bit of talk on Twitter of a potential trade for Patrick Surtain Jr.
Oh, that would be insane. That would be like...
That's the rich getting richer, that is.
Yeah.
Because we have the cap space and we have the capital. So I'm not sure if I've not seen any credible sources saying anything about it, but the fans are very vocal about it. About as vocal as the clamour was for the 49ers to trade for a certain Christian McCaffrey about this time last year.
Well,
so I'm not sure.
I'm going to say, so you don't get ahead of yourself. Because we had the same thing. We had the same thing with Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler, and we had Dalvin Cook was the big one we were constantly having for. It never happened. So yeah, I've thought it now never to trust Twitter for my sources.
The Dalvin Cook one's a funny one because I was actually in Orlando in April with the same friend who was a Vikings fan. He was wearing his Dalvin Cook shirt and somebody just went up to him and said, "Cook's going to Miami," and then just walked off. just out of nowhere at Disney World, just walked up to him when Cook's going to Miami and then just walked off.
Wow.
So, and before that, I hadn't heard anything about Cook leaving, and then I Googled it, and there was suddenly a load of everything. Everyone was like, "Yeah, Cook's going to leave." I was like, "Wow, I must have missed that."
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually glad it didn't happen now. I was actually annoyed it didn't happen. I remember as well when I was certainly looking up Derrick Henry rumours when that was swirling around, but looking at how he's performed so far, I'm actually glad he didn't come. I think we've got too good back. I think A-Kane looks like an amazing running back. And then Mostert, I think, if you take away the fumble against the Bills, which I think ultimately changed the game, I think he's been an amazing part of. I think he's playing his best football in his career, maybe apart from that 1 year with the Niners when he made the Super Bowl. So yeah, I'm actually glad we did that one.
With Jeff Wilson Jr. coming back, somebody that I really liked at the Niners, and I was a bit gutted we traded him. He'll be back. I think he's back week 6.
I'm not sure he's going to play now. I mean, is he going to be our third choice back? I can't see him getting ahead of A-Chain and Mostert. He only really had probably 2 good games in the Dolphins jersey. So I do. There was talk of him being part of a trade for Jonathan Taylor, which I wouldn't be against, but I'm actually fine with who we've got. So yeah, I think Jeff Wilson could be someone we trade away. I can't see us having him as our third. I think he's too good to be a third choice back. So I think we will ultimately get some trade value for him. I think we'll get rid of him ultimately. But it's a shame. Yeah, that Browns game he was amazing, and I think he certainly won a lot of Dolphins fans' hearts, that Brown performance. But yeah, shame the injury's come at the wrong time for him, really.
That was the same with why Jeff Wilson Jr. left the Niners, because obviously we had Christian McCaffrey, then we had Elijah Mitchell, then it was him. So I think it was his contract was up at the end of the season. We weren't gonna renew it, so get a 5th round pick while we could.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is where we'll end the podcast for today. So first of all, thank you once again for Shane for coming on and for Oli for coming for the first time to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
No problem.
No worries, about anytime.
I love talking football. I love having hot takes. So
absolutely, we had them all today. It's been a great episode. Before we do go, obviously your podcast, I've promoted it before, but what can we look forward to in the Third and Long podcast coming up the next week or two?
So we'll be breaking down the London game with me and Oli being there again. Hopefully I managed to get a great video of the Drake London touchdown last week, so hopefully I can get a good video of another one. Me and Oli will probably have an argument about Tua, because we tend to every week. Because I'm very high on him and Oli is not. Phil and me will probably go in on Mac Jones. There's lots of just rants about how bad the Patriots are. That will definitely come up in the next week or so.
But I'm here for that.
And we'll get to see Shane's reaction to watching the Ravens for the first time.
I still don't know how I'm going to be. I'm going to be
on alert for you on Sunday. I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to try to see if I can find you somewhere, and I'm expecting to see just like the whole seat, just like full of tears and puddles.
Bring an umbrella.
I'm sure the cameras will find him and get him on the big screen.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would literally be sensational content.
On the bongo cam.
Yeah.
And if you viewers and listeners want to find me, it is Shane_Harris14 on Twitter, and the podcast feed is at Third and Long Pod UK on Twitter as well.
Third and Long UK Pod.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, certainly go if you're listening or watching on YouTube. Go check that out. Good podcast. I've been on a guest before, had a blast. So yeah, it's a good one to listen to. But in the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our Week 4 review. I've been your host, Andy. This has been Shane and Oli from Third and Long, and we will see you guys next time.